We are live. Hello, everybody. I am joined today by Akpanoluo. So I will really let you give yourself a proper introduction, but I wanted to start by saying we met. I actually think a friend of mine a long time ago tried to get me to come to the Soundshop, but we didn't formally meet until our mutual friend Richard Chin introduced us. So that was really cool. And so it's just, and actually one of the things I like about you is that you have this business background, which we'll talk about. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Akpanoluo Etteh. Is that right?
Etteh.
Yeah, sorry, I was close.
No, it's alright. It's alright. You got the first name, so that's the.
I got that one down now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to start off by giving us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, Akpanoluo Etteh. I am from the suburbs of Boston. My late dad was Nigerian. My mom is Jamaican. And yeah, I've been obsessed with music my entire life. And it wasn't. I never really figured out what I wanted to do in the world of music until a very interesting confluence of events took place, where I happened to be in LA and was making a lot of introductions to various people in the music world. And I basically decided that I wanted to help connect my brother with other people in the world of music in New York City. So I had an initial event in my living room. That was 3 years ago in January 2017. And then I've basically had events almost every single month since. As far as my musical background is concerned, I started playing piano at age 7, trombone at 10. When I was in college, I was in a Jewish a cappella group.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then after college in New York City for a couple of years, I was in a Renaissance madrigals group. So that's kind of like the folk, more secular music of the Renaissance. And yeah, I'm just a huge music nerd. So I just love talking about music, and I love facilitating conversations across all aspects of music.
Cool. And would you say your like Jamaican background and Nigerian background, are there any musical influences from your parents, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Not as strong as you might imagine. I definitely got exposed a bit more to Jamaican music than to Nigerian music. But I think, for my parents, what kind of came from them, and especially from my mom, who I always quip that she's kind of like a tiger mom. And she actually uses that term too. After that book. But her big thing was she saw it as very important that we get a musical education. And she's also an artist. She's a painter. An art educator. So she really appreciated the importance of an arts education. And so yeah, she just put my brother and I on piano as early as we could, and I stopped playing piano as early as I could when I picked up trombone. But having that early start was definitely important for me. And another interesting random little tidbit is growing up, I was really into imitating the sounds of the world around me. So I've up learning how to do different bird calls, different vocal imitations, and that kind of transitioned seamlessly into me getting more into singing as I got older, and going into a cappella and doing beatboxing and all of that sort of thing. So it's all of the threads are kind of tied together in very interesting ways.
That's cool. Yeah. And we were actually talking about this music that I've been discovering lately that has kind of intertwined nature sounds like birds and waterfalls. And did you get to listen to any of that by any chance?
I actually haven't.
Oh, no, there's so much. There's so much.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
But before we get into the really good stuff, like the music stuff, I find it interesting that you had such a rich artistic upbringing, and yet somehow you also ended up very active in business.
Right.
That's how you and I met, through a business contact. So what happened there, and how do you think it informs your artistic career?
I like that question. Yeah, so let's see. So in addition to my music education, my mom definitely also and this was probably just through osmosis. I was very much exposed to my mom's paintings, and actually on the back of my mom's paintings, there's like these, drawings that I made when I was like very young in crayon on the back of them.
Nice.
Yeah, so I definitely had a very early start in my arts education. But the thing that my mom was always pushing toward, like the message that my mom was pushing toward my brother and I, was the importance of finding something that was like financially stable.
Unfortunately,
Yeah. And she would always remind us. She would be like, "Yeah, if I didn't end up getting into teaching, I wouldn't be able to support you kids on my own," because she was a single mom after my parents separated. And so I kind of took that to heart. And when I got to Yale, I decided that I was going to major in neuroscience, and that I was going to go into medicine. And I've always been obsessed with psychology. And so I was thinking, like, maybe I'll become a psychiatrist. But at the very end of it all, I kind of realized that psychiatry and, becoming a physician was not really for me. And so, I told my mom, I was like, I don't, this is my last semester at Yale, mind you. And I'm like the exemplar son. And I'm like telling her like, way, I don't want to do this. And she's like, what are you going to do? I was like, maybe go into advertising. Because it was right around that time that I started learning about the advertising industry. And I was like, oh, this could be an interesting like mix of like creativity and business, and then also kind of like my psychology based thinking. And so that's how I kind of moved into the advertising business. I started off doing a bit of social media strategy along with trend research. And so what trend research is, reading about the latest in technology and like writing about it, and then coming up with sort of reports that are kind of like coalescing different trends to be able to articulate like what are the macro trends that are going on in technology, and try to use that to inform clients on like where technology is going to evolve and how they should evolve along with it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I did that for a little while. Then I worked at a company that is sort of a consultancy, and we were doing research on different brands and how they were using digital. And that's when I started picking up coding. And then that led me to my current role at this big advertising company called Denstsu. And so in the current capacity that I'm in right now, I'm basically, crunching terabytes and terabytes of data using Python and SQL. But as far as how like the sort of like business aspect and the creative aspect comes together, like for me, I actually look at data analytics and creating products as like a creative process. Like I've realized that the way that I speak about code and the way that I speak about analyzing data, it's not in the like very regimented, structured manner that a lot of my peers at the same level do. It's kind of like this sort of like creative process where like oftentimes I'll like draw out things to try to figure out the connections between all of the different pieces, and redrawing the complex processes until I come up with a way of configuring it that it makes sense, and then executing on it. So I actually see it as like a very creative process.
Cool. And that's Arts Meets Biz. So thank you.
Nailed it.
Yeah, right. And I do think even your psychology background probably has helped you understand music. I think, especially of all the art forms, is so immersive. Like it really gets into your brain, you know. And I think it can have I feel like music is maybe one of the few art forms that you have these like sense memories about, you know, and you touch on all the senses. So,
yes, absolutely.
So I can definitely see how you might have been drawn to that. And then also with the coding and things too, have you gotten into any of the making music digitally or any of those programs?
Yeah, I've actually dabbled a little bit. I came across this really cool program called Alda, and so how would I describe Alda? It's they describe it as music for non-coders, coding for musicians. And basically the way that it works is, yeah, they've basically come up with a grammar for it such that if you enter an A and then you play that code, it'll play the note A. If you then and I think it would default to a quarter note. If you then do like A, B, and then that B is followed by, say, a 2, then it would be an A quarter note, and then the B would be a half note. And then, you say you do C, and then you add a 4 after it, then it's a quarter note. And so in that process, you can actually create songs, and you can create chords by grouping a bunch of letters together with slashes in between them to indicate that they're all played at the same time. So I actually found that to be really intuitive. The only thing that's kept me from actually using Alda to create my own music, and I would love to do it because I find it so much easier to use than say like Finale or Sibelius, although I haven't actually used Sibelius, but I've seen the interface. But I feel like as I'm thinking notes, I could just like type it in and just like play it back. But the only thing that's stopping me from using Alda to actually create music is the fact that it can't actually export a MIDI. That's problem number 1.
Oh.
2 is it can't export a spreadsheet. Yeah.
Like a chart?
Yeah. Like, sorry, not a spreadsheet. Sheet music.
Music, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the data and music.
Yeah, it's the two sides of the brains there. Yeah. Oh, it's probably in its still early stages.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's totally under development. But if there were a language that could do all those things, like enable me to just type in stuff and then generate both sheet music and MIDIs, then I would be absolutely golden. But I don't know if such a thing exists right now. So that's the biggest I've dabbled in that sort of thing. And then I've used Finale a good bit, but I find it frustrating.
Okay, cool. Interesting. So that's actually kind of a nice transition into where we're at now in regards to, the pandemic and how all these live events, which is what so many people think of when they think of music, and what a lot of musicians, strive to build their careers off of live performances. And even the Soundshop has been traditionally known as all events that you go to. What are your thoughts on how the live music industry is kind of evolving? It sounds like maybe with this coding, that's going to be like a whole nother angle. But what are your thoughts on that? And also, well, yeah, we'll start with that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that given where we're at, there's all of a sudden there's this need that technology theoretically could have already solved for, but the need hadn't been there, and now there is this need. So I would expect that in the next couple of months there will be more integrated services that will enable for more lightweight, light touch abilities to easily host a live streamed concert. As of right now, it's pretty much always like Zoom plus some other platform.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's all of the complexities just to using Zoom, because Zoom is optimized for the voice. So if you're adding in instruments, there's going to be issues. If you have a lot of dynamic range, there's going to be issues. And those are issues that that I've struggled with, and that musicians in the Soundshop community have had to deal with as well.
But you're still doing it, which actually the first live concert kind of event that I went to was the Soundshop one that you streamed. And I thought you guys had, there were maybe a few technical glitches, but for the most part, it was so great. And I think part of the reason why yours worked so well is because the Soundshop is not just a concert. And so we'll talk about that obviously too. But I thought you seemed to be, you know, you're taking the lead in my mind, at least in my world, you know, of just diving right in and saying, okay, we're just going to move everything online and move forward. And there was, I think, at least 20, maybe even 30 people at the first one I went to, right? So your numbers have been pretty good. So what has that process been like for you, kind of transitioning to live streaming?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, Soundshop is as much about experimentation as the process of making music itself. So, you know, every single event I've tried to do things differently, or, you know, come up with a different theme. And even though right now I haven't really been sticking to like strictly like every single event is a different theme, I definitely took that same sort of attitude of experimentation to jumping into the digital world. So yeah, it wasn't very long between like when the pandemic really set in and when I had my first online event. And I think for me, as far as, you know, creating events, I'm a big adherent to this book called The Art of Gathering, which is written by this woman named Priya Parker. And you know, you kind of start with the purpose of the event, and then everything gets filtered through that purpose. And so instead of thinking like, you know, how do I throw Soundshop online, it's like, what are the specific things about the online experience that I should take advantage of that still maintains that sort of you know, Soundshop community aspect. But you're absolutely right when you mentioned that the conversational aspect is very important for that, because I think that you know, the conversational aspect was great in and of itself offline, but I think that it's even more important online, because you know, it's very easy to just sort of like, you know, just listen to an artist play, and like you could be doing other things. But when it's a scenario when you're actually hearing from an artist, that creates a new level of engagement. And then the final thing that I'm doing around this is like, you know, I've shortened the length of the events. So I'm trying to keep it between like, you know, around an hour 15 to an hour 30. Because I know that, like, you know, even though we all theoretically don't have physical plans, but like, you know, our working schedules are completely out of whack. So I think it's important to be respectful of people's time, and you know, they're not like traveling across half the city just for an hour-long event. They're just like hopping on, and so like keeping it concise, I think, is really important.
Nice. I agree actually a lot, especially as I'm starting to get like zoomed out from going to all of these events and webinars. And so I appreciate that. So tell the people who don't know what Soundshop is all about, what Soundshop is.
Yeah, absolutely. So the mission of the Soundshop is basically to break down the silos that exist in the world of music. And we basically do that by creating curated events that facilitate connections between creatives, music industry professionals, and music lovers. And then, you know, there's also the cross genre component as well. So yeah, I've been doing it for 3 years. I've been doing events basically once a month. Now online, I'm doing events more or less once a week. And if you're interested in staying tuned with the latest of Soundshop, you can head to the-soundshop.com. And you can also head to on Instagram at the Soundshop, all one word.
Great. I'm putting this in the comments, and I'll also put the links on the YouTube video. Soundshop. The Instagram is at Soundshop.
Oh, the Soundshop.
Oh, the Soundshop. Okay, great. And cool. And the thing I like about it is, one, it seems like I know a lot of people who have done who are trying to do events for over a long period of time, and they have a hard time building. And you seem to have amassed a following of people who are sincerely just love music and want to just talk music, which I love, because I definitely fall into that category. And which brings me also to what kind of the main thing I wanted to talk to you about is this little like side hobby you have, if you will, but I feel like it clearly penetrates everything you do, which is, and you don't even have really a name for it yet, but I kind of call it music tracing. But there are these presentations. You gave one at the launch of the Revival, which is kind of a rated open mic showcase that I did earlier. Thank you. And that had a great response to it. And I know you do them live at a sound shop. And so talk to us about what these presentations are and kind of the purpose of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm trying to find the specific playlist that I want to speak to. Oh my goodness, I have so many playlists.
Of course.
I've almost found it. Okay, so basically, yeah, a big part of me being a huge music nerd is whenever there's something that piques my interest, I'll try to research what I can. And that very often leads to lots of different surprises. And so an early example that I can think of is at the second sound shop that I did. I had just gone to New Orleans for Mardi Gras, and while I was there, I encountered some buskers on Bourbon Street, and I went down to just like jam out with them, and I like suggested songs, and they knew the songs, and like we did the whole thing. So I had suggested. One of the songs that I suggested was St. James Infirmary. And I knew that to be popularized by Louis Armstrong.
Right.
And so they helped me they helped back me up. And I was doing my full like Louis Armstrong impression, like down to St. James Infirmary, saw my baby there.
Good. You sound just like him. I love it.
Yeah. So back in New York, after that amazing experience at Mardi Gras, I decided, I want to talk about St. James Infirmary, and I hadn't really looked it up on Wikipedia before. So just looked it up, and I learned that St. James Infirmary comes from, so Louis Armstrong basically made a jazz rendition of it, but it comes from this, folk song that is originally from England. It originated in the, I believe, late 19th century. And the original song was called The Unfortunate Rake. And it has very similar themes to St. James Infirmary. So, it's about someone seeing someone that they cared for who's just recently passed away, possibly due to something about the way that they lived their lives. Maybe they were drinking or drug use, that sort of thing. And it's sort of meant to be this cautionary tale. And so that initial tune ends up splitting off into all of these different variants. And so, each variant has very different musical elements, but it keeps that common thread.
Who did that one? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, nobody knows who.
Oh, it just surfaced. It was like, how was it popularized? Was it in bars or in schools or pubs?
You know, I actually don't know. That's actually
yeah.
It's worth
yeah.
But yeah, it's split into all of these different variants, and some of them made it to the United States. And so St. James Infirmary is one popular thread that broke off from that. Another one is the Streets of Laredo, which Cash did. So yeah, I like tracing musical histories like that because I think, I mean, it deepens my own appreciation for music, and I also think it helps for people that I'm sharing this stuff with, and I'm like, playing musical clips with. It helps deepen their own appreciation and curiosity.
Word musical history, actually, that's not a bad kind of name for the genre.
Right? And yeah.
Have you recorded any of these? As these, because you make them into full presentations. I think the one for the revival was about 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah, so I did a lot more of these in the past before Soundshop got a lot of traction, has a lot of artists presenting. So I haven't had as many opportunities to present, and I don't know what I've recorded recently. Yeah, I actually don't think that any of them are recorded, but yeah.
We need to remedy that. The show goes on, it needs to remedy that. As soon as
you
figure out how to go virtual.
Yes. Yeah. And as you've experienced, I do a very good job of both conveying that music history and making it entertaining.
Yeah, because you also sing and you have different angles too. It's not always about the singer or the song. It might be about a part of the song or like the beat or whatever. You do this really. It's so varied. I find it really interesting. Mark Ronson, as I mentioned, did a similar recently about Adam. I don't know how to say his last name.
Schlesinger.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Who just passed, and he did it on Instagram, and that's the only other person I've ever seen do anything like that. And I was like, that's Akpanoluo's idea, So if Mark Ronson doing it, then we got to get you out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A little 5 minute, not even 5 minutes, maybe 2-3 minute thing. So I think there's kind of a market for it. It's fascinating to me, and it also gives us an appreciation for where the music came from. Especially now. Maybe this is just because I'm getting older, but I'm finding so many covers now. There seems to be so many covers of all these songs that I know the original of, and the kids don't know the original. It breaks my heart when a kid is like, "Oh, I know that song. It's from this movie," and I'm like, "No, it's not from that movie,"
Yeah.
So I think
that's the intro step to get them to sort of see where you're coming from musically.
Yeah. So I love it. It's really nice, and also I feel like the Soundshop it's much about community, as anything else, and so your heart that goes into it is such a big part of it, and so I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. We've covered. Oh, did you want to talk about concerts and conversations?
Yeah.
That's part of the Soundshop, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of just what I've been calling these online events. I just figured it was a good time.
Branding.
Yeah, exactly. A good time to throw in a new name.
And you have been strengthening your branding and your marketing and stuff lately, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So a friend of mine, Anna, and her boyfriend Robert, they both work in branding. And then my friend Lauren, who I basically met the day that I conceived of Soundshop. She works in marketing. So the four of us got together last weekend to brainstorm our ideas for the Soundshop brand. So, I already have a very clear idea of what the Soundshop mission is. And, I've dabbled in random designs here and there, but it's kind of a hodgepodge of different pieces that have kind of been put together in an ad hoc basis. So because they have been with the Soundshop and have come to these events and have taken part and in some cases have performed, they are like the perfect people for me to be working with on creating the brand. And one of the things that we actually talked about during our brainstorming session was sort of, in addition to the visual brand, also coming up with a sort of sonic identity. So that would be the kind of thing
Right.
that would take place at the start of like any of the online videos on Soundshop. So
Like,
what?
Like a tone or a couple notes or something. Yeah, I love that. Something that puts into their head, you know, like 1-800-CARS for kids or whatever that annoying jingle is. I'm sure it will not be that annoying.
Right.
I'm like, well, brilliant marketing because it really works, you know.
Yep.
So yeah, I love that. And it's such a cool organic way that you're approaching marketing and branding. Again, very arts meets biz. You know, I always talk about the lean startup model. Have you ever heard about the lean startup?
Yep.
Which is all about I always tell this to artists who are unfamiliar with it because it's really a business thing and they don't think of their art as a product. But the startup model is all about building your product or packaging your product anyways to the people who really love it.
Yep.
Kind of, that's like a loose way I think of saying that. So the fact that you're building your marketing and branding with a team that you found from people who already love it is just a great embodiment of that. And I think, and also what I think is really smart is a lot of people are so quick to start branding and marketing because that's the hip buzz thing to do. And there's so out there that they haven't built the product enough, actually. And so you did it very organically. And again, it seems to just be coming from this authentic passion you have, which I would say is very much #another way. So thank you for that. But yeah, so I'm enjoying watching your process and seeing Soundshop grow and seeing you grow. It's very exciting.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to add or touch on that we didn't get to?
Right. Yeah, I think I kind of covered it. One thing I guess I could add is on Instagram on the Soundshop, I've been aiming to put some of my music nerdiness onto the Instagram itself. So on Sundays, I'll often put together, you know, details about a song. So like one that I did recently was about Hosier's song "Nina Cried Power." And I basically, you know, played clips of the song in a row. And, you know, with each story, I was, you know, talking about the lyrics of the song and, you know, how it's talking about Nina Simone and all of these other phenomenal Black artists who are women who are involved in the civil rights movement. Woody Guthrie also gets a mention. Maybe Bob Dylan gets a mention, but like sort of like breaking down who Hosier's talking about, and it was like really fun. So even though I haven't been doing as much of my own like music nerding presentations, I think you'll get a little slice of that there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like an evolution of it. I love it. It reminds me of, I think I mentioned it to you, that it's these people in Europe are doing it. So they're having these Twitter. They're doing it on Twitter. These Twitter listening parties where they'll listen to an album or a song and then everyone will listen to it at the same time and then tweet about it. So this is like the Soundshop's version, I feel like, of that. Where people can then engage on it because it's on Instagram. So then they can just add their little comments in there. So it's awesome. Again, it's just a way to like get out on music, which Lord knows there's plenty of people who like to do that. And it's also nice to see that here in New York, because I also think people kind of associate stuff going on in LA and not in New York. So we're like a beacon. I feel like here in New York. So awesome. So thank you again. There's definitely more we could go into, but I'm trying to also keep it short. So thank you for joining me. Everybody follow Soundshop. And when's your next event?
Thursday
on Instagram, or this is Zoom?
It's on Zoom.
Okay, great. So you have to go to the website to get the link. Okay, cool. All right. Thank you again. Take care, everybody. I'll see you later.
Thank you. Take care.